What's up, everybody? This is your boy Chris Reed Beats, back with another video. In this video, I'm gonna show you guys how you can produce your music inside of Reason using only stock sounds and effects. Let's take a listen to the track. All of what you are hearing is stock sounds. Synchronous as an effect overall is just a really dope effect. And this is one of my go-to sounds, super long side chain. So super long side chain creates this side chain by dipping the level of the overall sound. And because it's going through synchronous, it's timed at a specific value. So right now, the specific time value is at 1/4. So depending on your tempo of your song, it's going to be synced to the tempo of that song. And you're just going to get a perfect super long side chain where you don't have to go setting up your kick and setting up your compressor and having all of that gain reduction. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can acquire this sound very quickly by using synchronous super long side chain. So let's start off with this synth that you're hearing, this main synth you're hearing that has that super long side chain on it. That nice, thick sounding saw synth is accomplished by using a couple different Thors. Thor, OG Thor. So we're using stock patches inside of a Combinator, and they're being run through this line mixer. So we have a dark poly synth, ultra brass synth, synth brass 2, and a super saw stack 2. Along with adding synchronous with the super long side chain, we also added in Scream 4. So I'm gonna let you hear what it sounds like without Scream 4 right now. What you're hearing there is this subtle saturation, this subtle distortion that Scream is doing. This patch is called Tape 499, and I just turned down the damage control a little bit and turned up the master a little bit in order to accomplish this sound. You can find this patch inside of Scream 4 patches. This is warm saturation. There are other tape saturations inside of this folder. Scream 4 is still a great effect that you can use, and you can see right there when we added it to that sound, it just made it a little more brighter, a little more pronounced, and it just gave us that feeling that we're looking for, right? So Scream 4, definitely one of those you got to check out. Bash, 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 bash. For this bass line that you're hearing in this track, the bass line is coming from Europa, but it is a stock patch and is called Hard SNES. Reason has some really great bass effects combinators as well. So in order to find these bass patches, you simply need to go to your all effect patches, head over to dynamics, and then we're going to go to bass, and then we will find these different bass combinator patches that what you can do is drop them into your insert effects, and then that will give your bass a little bit more oomph. You might think that looking in the bass folder is going to be the best place for you to find the bass sound that you're looking for. In reality, you can find a bass patch in any of the patches. You just gotta do the work to tweak it to get it to sound how you want it to sound. And vice versa. There has been times in the past where I've used monotone bass synthesizer as a melody, not as a bass line, but as a top line melody. So it really doesn't matter too much where you get the patch from. It's just how you get your sound to sound like the thing you want it to sound like when you're making the music that you're making. Right? Got it? All right, cool. So I actually found this inside of Melodies, Hard SNES, or Hard Super Nintendo, I think that stands for. I don't know. I added a low pass filter to cut off some of those highs, the high frequencies, and just make it more like a sub bass, but it still has a little character, still has a little growl to it. And that's why I did what I did. Of course, somebody would say, oh, you could just use a sub bass, or you could just use another kind of synth bass. But I liked the way that this sounded with a little growl to it. So I just took out some of that growl with the low pass filter, boosted it with the nasty bass, and now we got this. Let's look at some more of these melody elements. For example, we have this basic FM pluck. Algorithm is a really great synth, and it has some really great stock patches. It's another one of those that I loaded up and I didn't do anything to. I left it exactly how it is, outside of adding a little bit of reverb, and I just played it like chords, arpeggiated chords. After I found basic FM pluck, I then also went with the same instrument and found early morning reso poly, and that gives us our intro sound. Speaking of the intro, right inside of the intro early on, we have this stab vocal. That stab vocal is being generated through Mimic, another stock Reason instrument. If you go to your factory sounds and you go to other samples, there's actually a bunch of different one-shots. There's chords, phrases, pads, stabs, effects, vocals, and wave tables. Inside of the vocal folder, we find this one sample which says female ah. And it's a very short sample that they have here, but I slowed it down in Mimic, and then I played it kind of low as well, down here on a G. And then we just sent that thing down the longest cave that I could find with the RV7000 and the Echo, which are both Reason stock effects. The RV7000 is a great reverb effect. They have tons of patches that I never use, but if you ever get creative or wonder what kind of patches they have tons of patches. I'm gonna tell you the truth. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, my go-to patch is whatever patch is already loaded there. If you are using the RV7000, here is a tip that you can use. You definitely want to open up this reverb and come to your EQ section and just turn down that low EQ gain. Sometimes some of these effects, some of these patches will have some EQ increased in this reverb. You might want to come turn it down. That way you get rid of some of the muddiness inside of that reverb that could be generated from those low frequencies. Lots of great patches that you can find inside of the Echo. A lot of times I'm pretty much just leaving it on the bass patch, and then I will play with the parameters myself. So for here, we just turned the time to a half. And then we turned up our feedback to about 66. Our wet dry is at 50, right around where the reverb is. And that just gives us this really long sounding sound when that vocal stab hits. So we also have this last melody, which is generated through this patch triangle pluck. And this patch can be found in Reason Sounds. So in your Reason patch collection, you have Reason Sounds, and then plucks and mallets, synth plucks, and then as you scroll down, you'll find triangle pluck. This is a stock sound. The only thing I think I did there was I panned it, and then I also added in some of that reverb. So now let's get into like the one shots of the track, okay? So I use Kong, but really the only thing here is just a open hi-hat. This is one of the hi-hats that you can find inside of Reason's drum supply. There are multiple places that you can find drum sounds and drum samples. This is the Kong sounds and samples, though they have bass drum, snares, hi-hat samples, etc. And that's one place that you can actually find samples that you can use as one-shots to drop into your red rum, or you can use that to drop it into Kong, or you can use it to drop into your club, into your club drums, wherever you want to drop them. That is one library that you can use to drop them there. And then you also have the club drums. If you have that rack extension, you also can have some drum samples that you can add into your drums there. Inside of the Rex files, you can actually get the different slices, and you can use those as one shots as well. So if you can't seem to find the drum sound that you're looking for, if it's a Rex file, you also can get the one shot from there. In the NNXT, you also can find some drums and drum kits with some samples inside of there as well. And also you can find some inside of Red Rum. If you look inside of the Red Rum drum kits, you can also find this exclusive drums sorted, and you can find some drum samples there. And lastly, if you have Drum Supply, then you can use Drum Supply, and it will have all of those samples that you find there: bass, snare, hi-hat samples, toms, rim shots, etc., etc., etc. So tons of places that you can search and shop inside of Reason to find drum samples. The drums that really give this some flavor and really gives this some push actually comes from this loop right here, and you pretty much could just use this loop as the entire drum sample. And you can find this drum loop. Inside of Deep House. Great thing about this folder is that at your expense, you have some really great drum loops that are song starters. You can immediately play that drum loop, drop that, drag and drop that into your sequencer, and you have a song starter as soon as it comes on. For me, it was a song finisher. As soon as I added that into this track, that pretty much solidified the track for me. Okay, let's look at this drum fill real quick. Here's our drum fill right here. Those drums are just trash. Last but not least, there's a vocal sound that you're hearing, and it's actually me. I recorded my voice into the track. Down. So with this vocal sample, I recorded it in. I also recorded me doing kind of like some percussion sounds. If you can't find the sound that you're looking for, don't be afraid to record it yourself. Last section that I wanted to talk about is this section. This is also more recorded vocals inside of this hook area. I recorded myself in kind of a silly way, so I'll bypass it so you can hear what it sounds like. I'm never afraid to embarrass myself for education. Pulverizer and 2 synchronous, as well as a compressor, in order to change that dry mix that you heard into this. Lastly, we can look at this mastering section, and this is Reason's default mastering suite. But if you take a look at my settings for my equalizer, I use one of the parametrics to drop down around 309 hertz. It really just drops down a lot of this like boxiness that you hear in the track. So if I play it, it just drops down some of that boxiness that you hear inside of the track. So we did that. I turned down on the stereo imager, the low band. I turned that down pretty much to mono there and leave everything else pretty much the same. Compressor just adds a little bit of compression, little glue compression there at the end. And then we have our maximizer, and we use this master gain. I pretty much use all these settings right here for the most part. If I'm not using this default mastering suite, then I'm going to be using the multi-band compressor. I leave it right over here in my favorites. If you got a really good mix and a good leveling of your track, multi-band compressor will kind of put it up there and give you a little bit more volume. But I use the default mastering suite this time, and I use this master gain here. Just turned it up until I was hitting past this 0 mark on my VU meter. And so once I got to there, as I was playing it, then I felt like I was at the volume that I wanted to be for this track. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Until then, peace.